Welcome to the Easier Way to Sell presentation of Close the Deal Without Selling. Here's your host and developer of the Easier Way to Sell, Ike Krieger.
Hey, this is Ike Krieger. Welcome back. In our last episode, we talked about how important it is that you be a receiver of information rather than a giver of information. And in this episode, we're going to discuss why it is that your ability to present and persuade, no matter how great your talent may be, it may be overrated in its effect on your making a sale. Before we get started on this episode, I wanted to provide you with some yes formula definitions that you'll be able to use from now on, and those definitions will make what we're about to cover even clearer. The yes formula asks you to define a problem as something that exists when there's a difference between what you have and what you say you want. More elegantly stated, and you'll find me saying this all of the time, is a problem is something that exists when there's a difference between your present state and your desired state. And a problem doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. There is actually in our life, in our universe, such a thing as a good problem. For instance, my yacht is too small. Now, who might this person go to get their problem solved? Who would this person go to get the bigger yacht? They would go to a problem solver called a yacht salesman. And that yacht salesman would help this client move from what they have to what they say they want. That is the definition of a problem, when there's a difference between what you have and what you say you want. And with that in mind, what is the definition of business? Well, again, for the purposes of the yes formula, business is the ability to solve other people's problems and get compensated for it. I mean, that's what you do, isn't it? If your prospect could do it on their own, wanted to do it on their own, knew how to do it on their own, they would. But since they can't, don't know how to, or don't want to, they're looking for someone that they feel comfortable with, that they like and they trust, that can guide them from their present state to their desired state. And the third definition is closing. And closing is your ability to create an environment in which your prospect will come to the conclusion on their own that your product, your service, or your idea will solve their problem. Play these definitions over and over again because they are the basis for the entire system, for the entire yes formula. Okay, let's go have some fun with the info that I have set up for today's podcast. The ability to present and persuade tops the traditional list of most valuable selling skills. You most likely believe that your ability to persuade someone to buy is an important part of your selling success. But imagine how much less critical your ability to present and persuade would be if your prospect took over those responsibilities willingly. Now, you'll be pleased to know that you already possess a set of underused communication skills that are far more valuable and useful than persuasion. And you'll soon be using at least 3 of these skills. And it's these 3 underused skills and not the ability to present or to persuade that determines who achieves ultimate sales success and makes it to the top of their profession. I'm reminded of a story that teaches us to take advantage of all of our underused skills. A man runs into the kitchen of a farmhouse. He sees his father sitting over there, and he says to his father, "I just found the greatest way to farm. It'll change everything we're doing. I downloaded it from the internet, and I want you to see it." The farmer looks at his son and says, "I appreciate your effort, but, I don't farm half as good as I already know how to." Now, traditional sales training promotes techniques like convincing and persuading because the convincing and persuasion model for selling works, but convincing and persuading produce results that are random and inconsistent at best. You find yourself bouncing back and forth from the highs of a possible sale to the lows of an unplanned rejection. It's very tiring, and all that bouncing can make you prematurely gray. But despite all the headaches, many salespeople stick out their chin and grin and say, "Oh God, I hope it's better tomorrow." Hope is not a strategy. Are you a member of the Close the Deal Club? If not, go to closethedealwithoutselling.com and join today. You know what's wrong with your traditional learn to sell training? Your prospect took the same training 3 years ago. Your prospects know what a traditional sales pitch sounds like. They've read the same books. They've listened to the same how-to recordings, and they don't like being sold to any more than you do. Traditional sales training can and does work. You just have to work too hard to make the traditional way to sell work, and your results are usually random and inconsistent. Another reason for your frustration, not the number one reason, but certainly in the top 3, is that you usually wing it when you sell. You don't follow any system at all. You probably go into a call determined to see what happens. And once again, that's hopeful, but it's not a system. If you do follow a system, it's probably a different system than your prospect is using. As a matter of fact, your systems are at odds with each other. You're trying to sell, and your prospect is using their natural buyer system to defend themselves against your sales onslaught. Interestingly, the traditional approach to sales training is based on a system, but that specific system is out of date, and yet it's in use by millions. Unfortunately, it's the most basic steps of the traditional sales system that are giving you all your grief. These steps come naturally to you. You've been doing each one your entire life. However, it's these few steps that destroy the way most people sell. Yet, traditional sales training can't live without them. Say goodbye to show and tell. Show and tell hasn't changed since you were a kid. You talked, others listened, and when you were done, you may have answered a few questions. And most people who sell for a living don't give their prospects an opportunity to talk because most people who sell believe that talking is selling. That's how you sell. You do show and tell. You talk about your product, your service, or your company, and the prospect listens. How is that working for you? Bottom line, the traditional show and tell system for selling is wrong, wrong, wrong. Using the incorrect system for profitable selling is as wrong as hiring a proctologist to do your eye surgery. Selling by show and tell works, but it works for a very small group of specific salespeople. You see these people producing good results. Why not you? These are the same people you've looked at for years saying, "Wow, they're good. I wish I could sell that way." Sure, they're good. But do you honestly believe they can explain how they do it? When you ask one of these natural-born salespeople, what steps did you go through specifically to make a sale or get a new client? Their answer is usually, "I don't really know, I'm just good." Well, being good on purpose may not be as easy for you. In these podcasts, you'll discover a unique set of tools for being effective consistently, predictably, and on purpose. What would it mean having a simple, reliable system for success? What would it mean to you, and what would it mean to your business? The YES formula is a step-by-step process that helps you shift from the role of a salesperson to one of a diagnostician. As a matter of fact, one of the Yes Formula guidelines is think like a doctor. And a doctor is the ultimate diagnostician. Now, I'd like you to imagine visiting the office of a new accountant who shakes your hand and says, "Before I review your financials and deal with your corporate tax problems, I'd like to share with you why I got into accounting, the organizational structure of our office, and why people think our firm is a great place to work." If a prospect wants to know information like that, the prospect will ask. If you have a tax issue, you just want a thorough, factual diagnosis and the problem fixed. How much would you care about all that extra information? You and every other salesperson who sells or provides a service for a living should talk less and listen more. Approach each new prospect in your role as a diagnostic problem solver. It's a much easier sales conversation. And based on the answers they're providing you, they're convincing themselves that they need or don't need your product or service. But they don't feel like they're being sold to because your questions help them clarify their problem. Your questions help them decide if they want, need, and can budget for a solution. There will be no more presentation with the hope of getting a yes. You'll use powerful diagnostic questions that are designed to clear a pathway to yes or uncover a no that was going to happen anyway. After all, if you're going to get a no, when do you want it? Sooner or later? You'll shorten your sales cycle. You'll reduce your sales stress, and you'll increase your selling effectiveness by shifting your focus away from being an expert presenter, and you're going to direct that focus towards maintaining your role as an expert questioner and a problem solver. Here's a good tip. When you use this selling system, remember to think like a doctor. Thinking like a doctor allows you to stay curious, authentic, and neutral and apart from the problem in your interaction with prospects or clients. You'll know the answer to this one. What do doctors do before they prescribe? They conduct a thorough examination. They ask relevant questions with a diagnosis at the conclusion of the examination. Those are the action items that go into a medical examination, right? No treatment yet. Just an examination. This examination helps both the doctor and the patient identify where it hurts or what's needed to look or feel even better. The exam may point towards a need to see a different specialist altogether. Well, you're about to learn how to conduct the same type of examination. However, instead of a medical exam, you're going to learn how to conduct a sales exam. And after your qualifying exam, you'll provide your prospect with a diagnosis and an appropriate prescription or action. No presentations and no selling until this exam is complete, and maybe not even then. Your examination might point to the need for a different or additional specialists. Your exam will help you determine if your prospect is even someone you want to work with. The exam is key. The traditional show and tell approach teaches you how to prescribe before you diagnose, and what would happen to doctors if they prescribed before they diagnosed. In sales, when you prescribe before you diagnose, you've set yourself up for more headaches and stress and personal doctor visits than you bargained for. Remember, we're all in sales. Doctors get you to buy into their prescription or treatment. What prompts you to select elective surgery? Your health decisions are based on the results of an examination with someone you believe has your interest in mind. And that someone will provide you with what the examination shows you need. Think about that. Your unique sales examination will provide your prospect with the motivation and self-interest to do a lot of the work that you used to, like giving the presentation and closing the deal. Plus, you'll find yourself gaining total control of the sales process. Lack of control is what makes you feel so frustrated. So, you already know how to sell. How will this approach make a difference? The YES formula reminds you that your selling success depends on your ability to get information, not give it. Let's repeat that for effect. Your job is to get information, not give it. And you get information by asking the same type of diagnostic questions a doctor would ask. And understanding the power and value of effective questioning is key. Effective questioning is probably the single most important factor in achieving business success. Successful communication in business negotiations, sales, or in everyday life is the result of asking the right questions. The way to learn about what people need or don't need is to ask open-ended interview-style questions and then listen carefully to the answer. That's it. That's the ticket to your success. Ask the right open-ended question and listen to the answer. But nobody taught you how to effectively get information. You weren't taught this skill in school. You were trained to be good at show and tell. You weren't trained to interview prospects and listen. You were trained to respond. You were trained to talk, not listen. Well, you can continue with show and tell selling, or you can learn how to conduct a unique sales interview that will allow you to examine, diagnose, prescribe, and get buy-in just like a doctor. And like a doctor, you'll learn how to get information, not give it. You'll learn a new way to ask questions and gather information that will help you close the deal without selling. In other words, you're about to learn the easier way to sell. That's it for today. I want you to remember those questions we went over at the very beginning. I want you to think like a doctor. I want you to look at your actions this week and decide whether or not you're giving information or getting information, and how those two different approaches make a difference in how you're viewing your own personal world of sales. This is Krieger. See you next time.